Hi, let's talk a bit about Agamemnon and his greatest rival, Clytemnestra. The tension between the two of these individuals is key to understanding, I think, um, the play, the Agamemnon, as Aeschylus casts it. Now, the image on the right here is a painting by Guérin, whom I don't know other than in this painting. Um, and the title of the painting is Clytemnestra. You have quite a different view of Clytemnestra here than you do in the Collier painting, which was regarded in the previous lecturette. This Clytemnestra seems to be quite consistent with the Clytemnestra that Homer portrays. She's being egged on here by the wild-eyed, vicious Aegisthus, who is the one with the weight forward, pushing Clytemnestra and pointing with his left hand into the sleeping Agamemnon, who's not yet dead. Whereas Clytemnestra is holding that knife, ready to wield it. And I wouldn't say her expression is totally neutral, but at any rate, this Clytemnestra is different from the Collier, where she's standing out in front of the house of Atreus, defying anyone to challenge her stance there. This Clytemnestra is going to go in and brutally murder her husband, but Aegisthus clearly goads him on. If you click the link across the bottom of the slide, you may be able to get a link to the OGCMA slide that I've created on this. But let's draw our attention to Aeschylus and his treatment. And I'm sorry that the previous lecturette was quite long. My hope is that this one will be considerably more compact. Certainly the greatest scene in the Agamemnon is the carpet scene. The carpet scene is central within the text of the play. It is the focal point of Agamemnon's arrival. What happens within the narrative of the play is that there is a good deal of fanfare leading up to the arrival of Agamemnon, with the signal beacon arriving, literally bringing the fire of the sack of Troy to, well, I guess I have to, literally, figuratively bringing the sack of Troy home to Argos, and that it arrives a little before Agamemnon himself arrives. Clytemnestra bids her slaves to bring forth out of the house of Atreus this elaborate, delicately woven, precious tapestry. I think it's important to note that Agamemnon himself comments that the tapestry is not produced by Clytemnestra herself. Around line 947, he says, "I have great qualms about destroying a house's property underfoot, spoiling rich textiles bought with silver." And I'd like to imagine a sort of comment there being made by Aeschylus, being made by the playwright, so that we can compare Clytemnestra to Penelope. Penelope, of course, who's a weaver, a virtuous woman. Clytemnestra is very much the opposite of Penelope, certainly in Homer, and probably in every depiction of Clytemnestra that we could get. And so there's this extra little sort of jab that this costly tapestry that Clytemnestra produces in the carpet scene has been bought instead of produced there in the home. Clytemnestra and Agamemnon in the carpet scene have a very subtle showdown where the two of them are wrangling for power, absolute power, over the house of Atreus. And Agamemnon returns with the parade and pomp of a celebrated war hero from the Trojan War, a successful military accomplishment. He comes back home to Argos and meets nose to nose with his wife in front of the house of Atreus. She's poured out this costly tapestry. Think of the red carpet treatment. And Agamemnon isn't so sure that he wants to walk upon this precious fabric. He says that, in fact, this is the sort of thing that a haughty monarch like Priam would do, walk upon costly apparel, costly material like this. He says at line 915 and following, fair praise, however, is a reward which should come from others. Besides, do not pamper me in a woman's fashion, and do not give me gawping or obeisance, crying from the ground as if I were some barbarian, or strew my way with vestments and open it to jealousy. It is the gods these things should magnify. So don't bring me, as he says, foot wipers and embroideries, but treat me like a man and let me act like a man. And Clytemnestra probably was not anticipating that Agamemnon would behave this way. She was probably anticipating that he would readily walk in the celebrated fashion into his own house, and so it takes a little persuading. She says at line 942, be persuaded. You are in fact the winner if you give way to me willingly. And there we've got a subtle acknowledgement from Clytemnestra that the two of them are actually struggling over primacy in this relationship. Agamemnon then says, well, if you are determined on this, let someone quickly undo my shoes. So he acquiesces and gives in, walks upon the tapestry, and enters into the house of Atreus in an arrogant and condemnatory way, self-condemnatory. He says, I have great qualms about doing this, but he does it nevertheless. It's an important detail. Clytemnestra is very good at controlling the entrance to the house of Atreus, and she's described in one place within the play as a watchdog over the house of Atreus. And you'll see in the coiffery that the control of the doorway into the house of Atreus is an important place, an important role to play. Control of the doorway, a bone of contention between the two. That's within the coiffery, but that's already established within the Agamemnon. Okay, at line 905, just shortly before that, Clytemnestra has said, please, my dear, get out of this carriage without putting to the ground that foot of yours, my lord, who ransacked Ilion. That's setting up this struggle between the two. Now, going back early in the play, we have the motif of the yoke strap of necessity, or the yoke strap of compulsion. At line 218, the chorus observes that at the moment that Agamemnon willingly participated in the sacrifice of Iphigenia, he, quote, put on the yoke strap of compulsion. Notice how in the lines just preceding that, the chorus is saying, the chorus is recounting Agamemnon's position at the sacrifice of Iphigenia, where he says in line 206, "Fate will be heavy if I do not obey the gods' prompting. Heavy as well if I hew my child, my house's own darling, polluting her father's hands," that is my own hands, says Agamemnon, "with slaughter streaming from a maiden at the altar. What is there without evil here?" So poor Agamemnon is in a no-win situation, and characters within the Oresteia find themselves in no-win situations. Agamemnon feels compelled to sacrifice Iphigenia, and the chorus, talking about the yoke strap of compulsion, is describing a beast of burden who's put into the yoke strap where he must serve the will of the gods. And poor old Agamemnon finds himself in such a situation. But he actually becomes delighted in his role at the sacrifice of Iphigenia. If you go on to line 220, his purpose changed to hard audacity. At the very end of the Agamemnon, there's a moving tableau with the bodies of Cassandra and Agamemnon rolled out onto the stage on this sort of lazy Susan kind of thing that rolls forth out of the house of Atreus, and Clytemnestra stands over the bodies, the butchered bodies of Agamemnon and Cassandra, and says he's wrapped in the net of fate that he began to weave for himself long, long ago. Let's end this vignette or this lecturette. Will you please go to the Top Hat Monocle site and log on there and find the discussion question called Carpet Scene, and answer this question briefly. Who wins the struggle between Clytemnestra and Agamemnon in the carpet scene? What does Agamemnon say that clarifies that?